Hello there folks, my name is Ben and welcome to another Shots Fired Airsoft video, and today I've got an unboxing for you of something I'm actually quite excited about. Now you'll know that if you watch the channel, I'm not a huge fan of AEGs. I find they're very competent and absolutely for performance they are the go-to for gameplay. I just find them a bit soulless, and I kind of just gravitate more towards gas blowbacks. I like them. They're, simple machines, easily maintainable as long as you put the time and effort in. I just get along with them better. However, this does interest me because it's a budget gun that comes with a programmable trigger unit and is MOSFET driven. Quite excited to go through the programmable modes and see what this will do. You'll also notice that unlike the Golden Eagle guns that we've unboxed in the last two videos, this has double the amount of eagles. And I don't know what it is with Chinese manufacturers, but you've got Golden Eagle, double bell. They love multiplying things. Golden Eagle is essentially kind of like, these days, the sort of Western aimed side of JG or Jingong, and it's great that they've changed the name to Golden Eagle, because that still sounds really Chinese despite the fact it's not actually JG or Jingong. But anyway, enough waffling. So this is the Double Eagle M904 and this model is the G, which is essentially the shortest, nastiest little, honey badger, as you can see in the top corner there. Packaging is really quite nice. We come with the all new Falcon electric gearbox, or electronic gearbox, with a patent number, which is proudly displayed on the front of the box there. It's like saying, hey, we haven't robbed this from anyone, which is, a nice surprise really. Apart from that, little carry handle on the top of the box. We've got produced in China, we've got a little bit of logoing, some warnings, and we have a few features listed. A built-in Falcon electronic trigger control set, built-in Falcon electronic trigger control system, set-by-wire system, makes your trigger work more sensitive and eliminates power loss and electric damage from a mechanical switch. Yeah, so we're still dealing with a very Chinese weapon here. So without further ado, I'm going to unbox this. I'll have to do this off camera because box opens one end and the gun slides out, so I'm not going to be able to do that here because I will knock everything over. I'll be back with you in a second. And through the magic of editing, we're back. Now, one thing I will comment on is that a lot of these Chinese manufacturers have come on leaps and bounds with things like their packaging, their boxes. There was a time that this would just be a plain cardboard box with a sticker in the corner. And there are some airsoft manufacturers which charge a lot of money for their weapons that still do that now. It is nice to have a box. It's nice that it's not full of polystyrene. It's actually this closed cell sort of styrofoam. And it's really nice to see. So without further ado, let's get into this. And there is a bit of a difference with this gun. And I'll explain what that is. It may be slightly different to what you receive if you buy the same model. And there we are. So, it looks cracking. For a start, it's short. I can't normally get rifles like this in this camera frame. We have a couple of manuals. I will have a look at those in a moment. We have, and this is the difference between my one and the one you will receive, a polymer mid-cap magazine, which I'm a huge fan of. The story goes that there is also a spring in this box. What happened is this batch of guns was delivered to Bespoke Airsoft, which is where I purchased this from, without the power being adjusted. So the guns are too hot for the UK market. So Bespoke Airsoft have gone in there, changed the spring, and that's why I've got a spring in the box. So you won't receive a spring in the box. The other thing that's different is this polymer mid cap is supposed to be a metal 300 round high cap magazine. Now I can't tell you how overjoyed I am that mine's got a polymer mid cap in it, because I hate high caps with a passion. I understand that they are kind of the ideal thing in a hobby, but I play CQB, semi-auto only. I don't need 500 rounds on tap, and it's sounding like a bag of Skittles when you're running around with it. So to have this is brilliant. Now the reason this is in here is I think there's been a bit of a mix-up, because obviously all these guns have been taken out of their boxes, they've been adjusted power-wise and put back in. This is the magazine you get if you buy an M904N, which is N for normal, as opposed to the 300 round high cap that comes with pretty much every other model of this gun. So I think, from what I can find, there isn't much information on this polymer mid cap. I think it's about 160 rounds. I could be wrong on that. I do apologise if I am. However, if you buy an M904G, which is the same as this weapon, about £10 more expensive, comes with your polymer mid cap, and I believe it has a metal M-lock system on the front, as opposed to a polymer one that this has. However, we'll go over that in a minute. This gun is pretty much all polymer front to back, metal flash hider, metal outer barrel, but it is built really nicely, and it feels like it's closer in build quality to like an ARP9 as opposed to a like a very cheap low-end Cyma, which kind of feels like ABS plastic. You just tap on it and you get that sort of hollow Chinese plastic sound. But so yeah, so this is a nice, well-built polymer magazine, no wiggle, you can't bend it or anything. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it performs and if it keeps up with the full auto on 11.1. You get a unjamming rod, which is actually taped to the top of the foam as opposed to just floating around inside the box or being wedged underneath the gun, scratching the side of it, which is a nice change. And then we have a little box of tricks here, and again, lovely packaging. We've actually got a little logoed box made out of nice black cardboard like the rest of the packaging, with their little logo on the front, which is 2 eagles facing back to back, because of course more eagles. Again, don't eat silica gel, it's not good for you. And what we have in here, we have an Allen key, a nut wrench, and we also have an adapter. This gun comes wired with Dean's plugs, and I implore you to use Dean's plugs. I cannot express how much hatred I have for the small Tamiya connector. I've used them in videos before because that's what the gun came with, and out of the box the AEGs I've had before have come with batteries because they've mainly been lower end things. A little bit of information for you: if you have a LiPo that is, say, a 15C 2000 milliamp hours, that essentially means that it can output 30 amps. Your gun, that's probably enough for it, and the LiPo should be well sized. If it's got a small Tamiya connector on the end of it, this is rated, when it's brand new and you haven't connected and disconnected it loads of times, 10 amps. So anything over that, you are essentially knackering your efficiency, and a lot of energy that should be going into your gun is going into this, which is wired directly to your battery and limiting its essentially causing it to have a higher internal resistance than it would normally, and yeah, pissing away a load of your electrical power as heat. And in supreme cases they will melt, and they will melt together. So yeah, if you've got even if you've got low end gun, it's always a good idea to change your connectors to, say, Dean's or something like that, because they're just a bit better. The maximum these can take is 10 amps. That's it, no more, maximum. So anyway, enough ranting about that. So we have a nice little pre-made adapter should you wish to ruin the performance of your weapon, or if you buy a battery and it does come with a small Tamiya and you're sensible and don't want to use the adapter, they actually give you a little female Dean's connector, 2 bits of heat shrink, and a little guide on how to solder these connectors, which I highly recommend you do. And it's another little part of the hobby that people can get into, but soldering and all that sort of jazz. So I actually applaud Double Eagle for doing that. I understand why they've included the connector, the adapter. However, I again implore you, do not use the adapter. Please just wire your batteries with Dean's to use in this. So with all that out of the way, let's get the gun out and have a little look. Okay, and here we are. Now, the first thing I want to say about this is, like I was saying before, this is entirely polymer, this gun. We have sort of polymer flip up sights. We've got a polymer M-lock rail system, polymer receiver, polymer stock, sort of tube. We've got a nice little sort of skeletonized stock there, and if you release the buttons, it will click out, and then you have, I think, you have 3 positions. So you've got closed, medium, and full length, and then after that it will pull out. It also exposes your little battery tray on the back, which is actually just on a little push clip, and if you pop that out like so, you will find in the back of the gun your little Dean's connector. So to connect your battery. Again, charging handle is polymer, feels nice and secure. It does have metal parts in it. This gun obviously does have metal bits in it, and like I said, this beautiful flash hider with a, I believe it's 23mm outer thread, which I'm guessing that Double Eagle are intended on bringing over at like a quick screw-on suppressor, to give this a bit more of a tactical look. And your outer barrel and various parts in there, as you can see, there's like a mock gas tube assembly there, are metal. So with that bearing in mind, if I grab this and really give it some stick, you won't hear anything. There's no creaking. It is a very solidly built gun. Like I said, it reminds me of an ARP9 that I used to have. I never did a video on it because I wasn't doing videos at the time, and I sold it to another new player before I started the channel. Now, it's got some nice actual, obviously there's no scale or trademark markings on it. It is purely Double Eagle's own. You've got Falcon Fire control system there. We do have an M-Lock rail logo on it. I'll take that back. And we have Double Eagle's little logo on it. And then again on this side there's nothing, you've just got the M-Lock sort of rail. We have this beautiful flat trigger, which is really nice, and I say because it's got the electronic trigger unit in it, you get a really smooth trigger pull. Very little feel to it, but it feels slick, if you know what I mean. So again, we have adjustable sights front and rear. These are removable, they're not welded to the gun or anything, and they just literally pop up on a detent. So there you go. They do sit quite high, may not be to everyone's taste, but again, undo your bolts and they pop off, and you can put whatever sights / optics you want on it. So overall, there isn't too much more to go on it. We've got a faux bolt catch, doesn't do anything. Your charging handle obviously opens your ejection port, and in there you can see your rotary hop. The charging handle does not lock back, which is a bit of a shame because it's always a bit of a faff trying to actually get in there to adjust your hop when you've got to hold the gun and then kind of flip it over and use your thumb or something to get in there. Bit annoying, but oh well. Other thing I will say about this, you have an ambidextrous selector, so on both sides of the gun, and your magazine release is very much extended. Well, I say very much, it's not massively extended, but it is very satisfying, very clicky. It's not ambidextrous though, so this gun is not fully ambidextrous, it's partially ambidextrous. Let's look there at the bottom of the grip, your motor adjustment screw. In there into the mag well, you can see the front of the gearbox assembly. It does actually look quite nicely cast. There's no real sort of nasty edges or you know, sort of chunks missing out of it where the casting's been terrible. And generally it looks like a well-built weapon, I say, and it feels very good for what it is. One thing I have noticed about this, if I just pick up the mag and pop it in there, we get a nice positive insertion, but we have an awful lot of mag wiggle. It's still preferable to having, you know, a 400 round high cap hanging out of there and going like they all do. But again, yeah, there's quite a bit of mag wiggle there. I haven't tried feeding BBs for it yet. I did take it out the box and have a little look, just to make sure that the trigger unit worked and that everything was hunky-dory. The other thing I'd like to say about this is this has like an electrical programmable trigger. People often call these MOSFETs, and yes, they have MOSFET technology within them. However, it's perfectly possible to have a MOSFET that doesn't do anything other than use MOSFETs to control the flow of power in the gun, as opposed to just letting the trigger contact short out, which is essentially what fires your older style AEGs that don't have, well, MOSFETs in them. This has an electronically programmable trigger, which essentially means that you have full control. Well, not full control, but you have a lot of control over what the trigger does. So one of the features, for example, on this is it has a binary. You can set it to have a binary trigger, so every movement of the trigger fires or essentially cycles the gearbox. So that's pulling it back and then releasing it. So pulling it back fires around, releasing the trigger fires around. which means that with it set to semi-auto, you can spam rounds out of this thing like no one's business, especially on 11.1. Speaking of which, I'm going to weigh this, and then we're going to get to firing a few rounds out of it. Well, not firing a few rounds out of it. I'll demonstrate the trigger unit, and and we'll check like cycling and all that sort of jazz, and how snappy and responsive the trigger is. Okay, so I want to take some time just to have a quick closer look at the manuals themselves. There's not much to see here, although it is quite a sort of to the point manual. This is actually the instructions for the Falcon firing control system, or 2.0 as it may appear. So essentially you have control over full auto being 1 to 5 shots. So you can set it semi to ensure that you have no full auto. You can also set it to 2-shot burst, 3-shot burst, 4-shot burst, 5-shot burst, or just normal full auto. You can also have an ultra hair trigger, essentially, or you can have it be a bit lazier, depending on how you like your guns to react when you pull the trigger. And then mode 3, as you can see there, the other setting you can have is 1 shot for each trigger pull and release mode, or as it's known in airsoft, the binary trigger, which again is fire, 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 as opposed to fire, fire. This is the little manual that's specific to the gun, or this series of guns. Again, we don't really get an individual manual for each one, which I guess is kind of understandable. We have safety, we have controls and features, how your fire selector works. Again, it seems obviously to an experienced airsofter, it seems a bit kind of stupid having this in a manual, but that's what manuals are for. A lot of things skip over a lot of this stuff. How to fire the weapon, we've got how to mount different rail systems on there, how to install things on your M-lock rail system, how to fit the battery, how to use the retractable stock, how to put the magazine in. We have how to adjust the sights, which is quite interesting. Not a lot of things also often have anything in there about the sight system, or how to adjust it based on what you need. We have how to adjust the hop-up. We have maintenance, so suggestions for barrel cleaning, and for talking about the bucking, how to unjam the rifle. We have normal maintenance, keep the rifle in clean condition, never use data damaged or distorted bullets, and regularly clean the barrel with a soft cleaning rod. Or it means the rod with a soft cloth in the end. So yeah, we've got kind of everything in just a few pages about how to look after your gun, how to fire your gun, how to set the gun up. And then we have quite a decent, concise manual about the Falcon electrical trigger unit. However, I will say the only thing it doesn't really say very clearly, I found to be a bit difficult to decipher, is to return to the previous mode, move the lever to the safe position, pull the trigger and hold for 5 seconds, then release after the rifle emit vibration. So essentially what you do is to get the gun off, like say if you put it on 3-shot burst on full auto and you want to actually put it back to full auto, then you pull your trigger for about 3 seconds, you get 3 beeps, and then you continue holding your trigger and you get a long continuous beep, and what that means is that the gun is reset to factory settings. So it will just do semi and full auto, and also your trigger is reset back to its sort of original setting, so your hair trigger goes back to a normal setting. Okay, so we're back with the gun on my little weigh scales. I've taken a bit of time to make sure the gun's not sat on the table or anything like that. With a battery included, this is an 11.1 volt, so a 3-cell 1300 milliamp hour 25C battery. We're at about 2.6 kilos, which again, like the Golden Eagle gas blowback M4 that we had in a couple of videos ago, for me is kind of the sweet spot. It's not a toy feeling cheap weapon. It's like the Cymer M4, the electric one that we did, was a bit kind of lightweight, and at 1.8 kilos it kind of felt a bit like a toy. It functioned brilliantly, and I'll be absolutely honest, for a new player, someone very young or something like that getting into airsoft, not having to carry around something that weighs 3.5 kilos is a huge advantage. But this at 2.6 is not a 3.5 kilo weapon, but it's also not the kind of toy feeling you get from holding something that feels a lot lighter than it should be. And the other thing is, I'd like to just note on this whilst we're weighing it, is the size of this thing. It's ultra comfortable. I will touch on it far more in the review side of things. At the moment, I say we're just looking at features, you know, and sort of my general impression of the gun on unboxing. But I will touch on that. This is a fantastically slimline weapon. So let's get that battery inside it, and we'll have a few firings and play with the programmable trigger and see what we can do. Okay, so battery time. I'm going to be as clear as I can with this because it's a bit of a ball ache to film things in the space that I've got. So I pull the Deans out to the side. This battery is nearing the larger end of what you can fit in this. I have to kind of put it on its side there. There is a bit of wiggle room between. However, you don't want to go too mad with it because obviously these big rails, these big metal rails, which I should add because the stock is very secure, do slide in and out, and it is possible to get wires trapped, damage the battery, etc, etc. So you have to be a bit careful with what, put the gun on safe, what you actually do with your battery when you put it in there. In terms of space, I don't know if you can see in the video, but you have actually quite a bit of depth and width. Apparently this depth is about 120 millimeters deep. As you'll see, this LiPo is around 108 millimeters long, and if I put it in there, it does drop right in. You do actually get a little bit of extra battery space with this little cap on, because as you can see, it's not actually flush. So you've actually got, you win yourself a few more mil of space in there. This little spring detent here is for actually popping the stock out when you press the buttons. Apart from that, it doesn't really do anything. So I'm just going to try and connect the battery and slide it back in. It can be quite awkward. Ooh, yeah, I'm just going to light it down. So if we get this connected like so, and then slide the whole lot back into the gun like that. There we are. Rescue my cat. It's always horrible doing these things on camera because you always end up looking like a fop. There we go. So that's back in, and we should still have, because we slid it all back in one go, a nice smooth stock, so we're not eating the wires in there. If I just leave that out, I say it will just close back over, and it looks like it was. But say I'll pop that out just a little bit. There you go. So I'm going to take the mag out. There's no rounds in it anyway, it never has been. So we have on 11.1 semi. So we have an ultra responsive trigger, and we have very little trigger movement required to actually fire the weapon. It's only probably about half the movement. As I say, nice and snappy, full auto. It sounds and feels pretty good. Okay, but that's where the fun begins. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to put the gun into safe mode, and then we're going to pull the trigger. We've got the 3 beeps, and then you've got modes. So if we press it once, that gives us 1 to 5 shots. If we then press 1, 2, 3, we get 3 beeps. If we then go to full auto and pull the trigger, we now get a 3-round burst. So if we put it back into safe, hold down the trigger, 1, 2, 3, continue holding the trigger, long beep, and release, go back round to auto, we have full auto back. So that's essentially how the system works. It relies on you to pulling the trigger, you get 3 beeps, and then you pull the trigger the corresponding number of times to get into your setup menu. It sounds a bit of a faff. I spent 5 minutes fiddling with it, and I'm pretty au fait with it now. Although I still have the manual in the background to remind me. So if I'm back in safe mode again, let's say we want the binary trigger. So we pull the trigger again. We pull the trigger 3 times, then release. and then move the trigger around to semi, and what we end up with, or should end up with, is, there we are. So we're now firing on the pull and the release, which means that if you finger bang it, you essentially get full auto, but in semi, which is really cool. So yeah, that's it's quite impressive actually. So that's how the system works. In the firing review, I'll use some different modes and we'll do a few burst firings and all that. I think this is really cool. I love this sort of thing. I'm glad that I haven't had to pay, you know, 300 quid for a gun and then an inordinate amount of money for like a programmable Titan gate or something like that. This is $139.99 out of the box. It has features that, you know, high-end AEGs don't have. Obviously, a lot of guns you're paying for the sort of externals of a weapon. You might be paying for trademarks. You might be paying for like a, you know, an alloy or even steel receiver, steel parts and all that sort of stuff. This you are paying for nothing other than good performance and firing features. The performance of the gun, we'll see in the test. Heard good things about them, but it would be interesting to see what comes of it. One thing I will just say before I go, I haven't mentioned it. Obviously, I mentioned earlier, it has this metal flash hider. It's a really nice metal flash hider, and it has a thread on the outside. Underneath, there is a grub screw. You undo that, unscrew, and you've got a 40mm negative thread under there for any silencers, tracers, whatever you want to fancy putting on there. If you've got one of these and I've forgotten to mention something in the unboxing, then do please let me know, and I'll make sure to include it in the review. Other than that, I've been Ben. It's been a Shots Fired Airsoft video. I'll see you next time, and we'll be firing this, and it's going to be good. I can feel it.